Hello and welcome to Connect, the weekly podcast of the California MBA featuring one-on-one interviews with movers and shakers in the mortgage industry. I'm Susan Milazzo, CEO of the California MBA, and very happy that you could join us today. Before I welcome today's guest, I'd like to thank our 2024 President's Council sponsors. Now, these are a group of companies that have provided a tremendous amount of financial support for the California MBA, in large part so that we could continue to be that strong voice for the real estate finance industry before the California State Legislature and our regulators. So I'd like to thank this year's President's Council sponsors, and those companies are AmeriHome, Arch MI, CMG Financial, Consolidated Analytics, Funding Shield, Guild Mortgage, and Western Alliance Bank. Thank you all so much for your support this year. We truly appreciate it. And with that, I'm very happy to be welcoming today's guest, my friend Holly Neber, who is CEO of AEI Consultants. Holly, welcome.
Thank you, Susan. It's so great to be with you today.
So I always like to get started just kind of finding out how people got into the real estate finance industry and the mortgage business. So tell us how you got into the business.
Well, I've listened to many of your prior podcasts, and I know most people have a circuitous route of getting here, and mine is similar. So I grew up in the Midwest in the Kansas City area and was really more of a nature girl, more comfortable in hiking boots than business shoes. In fact, when I was a kid, my parents lived off the grid and we lived in a teepee in the Ozarks for a while. So I've definitely been very familiar with kind of nature and living in nature. And I got an environmental studies degree at University of Kansas. And at the time, I really didn't understand anything about the built environment or commercial real estate, but I got a job doing phase 1 environmental site assessments out of college, and then moved out to California and continued to learn more about environmental site assessment at commercial real estate properties. And over time, really got exposed to this beautiful world of commercial real estate, which doesn't sound all that exciting to a young person. And I hope that, you know, as we all work for the pipeline of our industry, we find ways to give the young people in our industry and in our communities more access to this field. But I think the number one project that really got my attention was working on the environmental side of a redevelopment project in downtown San Francisco for a West Coast REIT, and really seeing how one single project could transform an entire neighborhood block by block and really change that community. And that really helped me get more excited about commercial real estate and what we can do in this community.
That's a great story. I had no idea of your upbringing, living in the Ozarks. I've not heard that on the podcast, so that was definitely a first. That is definitely a first here. You know, one of the things that you know, all the years I've known you, you've been at AEI, but I've looked up your profile, and you've been it's just not common in this day and age to see somebody at one company for so long. I would imagine that a lot of it has to do with the corporate culture at AEI. So I thought you share with us a little bit about AEI's corporate culture and what kept you there for so long.
Well, I think we do see a lot of people now feeling the need to move jobs to get a promotion or get a raise. And I'm just so thankful that I've been able to find lots of different jobs at AEI. I started out, as I said, as a phase 1 environmental project manager. And over the years, as the company has grown, I've been involved with opening offices, training people, hiring people, and then as time goes on, becoming more involved with leadership. I became the president in 2009 and CEO in 2016. And you know, we really focus on having a culture where people can stay, build trust, build connections both internally and with our clients, and really be a forever home for people. And I know that's not everyone's professional aspiration, but that's what I needed in my life. I moved around a lot as a kid, in addition to being in a teepee, and I just loved that when I got here, I was 29 years old. I became friends with my coworkers, and we have built this together, and we really have so much pride in what we've built and the connections we have with our clients. So it's my forever home for sure, and we hope to offer that type of environment for everyone who's here.
That's a great story. I'm certainly glad to hear that. AEI offers a number of services to the industry. How has valuation and due diligence changed since the pandemic?
Right. So anyone doing third-party due diligence reports for the commercial real estate market, we are your canary in the coal mine. We feel what the finance industry is experiencing. And so we've been on this roller coaster ride with all of you, from the heights of the market post-COVID shutdowns to last year's revision of the markets. And now it feels like we're in sort of a stable place. Certainly in the valuation space, we've seen a lot of challenges with respect to office valuations. And on the due diligence side, we still see large portfolios of multifamily, self-storage. We recently did a large industrial portfolio. So there's still deals being done, but there's just more friction with every transaction. So on the environmental side, we try to give people information so they can make informed decisions. Knowledge is power, but not everyone wants to hear the environmental news sometimes. And unfortunately, there are a new class of chemicals that's gaining more attention right now called PFAS. It's the chemicals used to make Gore-Tex, and that is becoming more and more regulated. So unfortunately, for those who wish that there were no environmental issues, we continue to really just help our clients think through what are they dealing with at a site and how can they find a way to move forward in these challenging times.
Right. I know I recall this coming up at our Western States CREF Conference, but FHA Radon requirements changed about a year ago. How has the industry adapted?
Well, I think, the new requirements went into effect last summer, and that increased the amount of sampling that was required, especially in the 20 states that have a state level requirement for 100% of the ground floor to be sampled. And so there was a lot of anxiety that, would the consulting firms be able to keep up? Would the laboratories be able to keep up? And it really seems that those two anxieties did not play out. The market's been able to adjust. The labs are fine. We're able to get the information back that we need. I think more than anything else, it's just been the general logistics of getting access to that many units. And then in keeping the tenants informed that, these canisters will be in place on the property for at least 48 hours, and hopefully reminding them not to throw out the test kits, so we don't have to go all the way back out there for a second round of sampling. So, it's definitely more logistics friction, and then it's also additional costs on transactions, which I know no one wants, but we are finding that the market's able to adapt. And I would say, it is, I know it can be frustrating for people, but we just finished a project in Boise, Idaho, where we found elevated results, radon results in half of the units, and 2 that were extremely high. So the property owner is going to be working on mitigating those units. And so it's just a reminder, kind of a reality check, that even though this is kind of a pain and another box that has to be checked, in those situations where the radon is so elevated, mitigating that is really important. And hopefully in this case, there'll be someone who will avoid a lung cancer diagnosis in Boise because of this work.
And always nice to, have a change in requirement and expect, expect some challenges, but then in reality, see it all come together. So that's nice to hear.
Yeah, I know that they are tracking the results of the sampling in the enterprise radon database, so that they can make sure that, it is having the meaningful impact that they hope it will. Generally, we're seeing that the results tend to align pretty well with the radon zone maps that were used in the past. With a couple of notable exceptions, we're seeing elevated radon in Dallas and South Florida as well. So interesting trends, and I know they're continuing to review that as they go forward.
Also kind of related to pandemic effects, what is AEI seeing as far as
Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in the hopes that we will find people actually in the building. But it's not unusual to see the tenant suites with far fewer employees than the space can accommodate. So we expect vacancy to continue to be a challenge through 2028.
Yeah, that's who knows where, that's all going to shake out. But I can imagine trying to go and do the inspections when you think somebody's going to be there would probably be really key.
Yeah.
Being leading a company like AEI for as long as you have, it's one thing to be a leader during hot markets, but it's something different when there's a challenging market, kind of like we are seeing in today's market. What are some of the leadership values that you can share with companies to help them navigate through tough times?
Well, I think one of the main things we've done is focus on normalizing uncertainty. And, as I said earlier, knowledge is power in the consulting services that we provide, but also to our staff to try to help them understand the economic markets. Like I said, when I was beginning in this business as an environmental professional, I had no insight into the commercial real estate markets, into capital flows, and to understanding why it's so important that finance can be moving through the system and creating opportunities for people to buy, sell, and invest in real estate. So really helping our staff understand the larger ecosystem within which we operate, and understanding there will always be cycles in our business. Of course, we have a diverse client base. We do a lot of Fannie, Freddie, HUD, industrial, multifamily, all kinds. And we have an intentional diverse business because we know sometimes different sectors will be firing and others won't. But in the current situation, it definitely feels like a cycle. So we're using those times, the quieter times, to really focus on the basics, review our operations, and understand, where there's some opportunities to be more intentional about the customer experience. So an example is we offer so much, you could have 8 deliverables from AEI on a single deal. And we realized during last year, when there was some time to really review that process, that there's an opportunity to review the salient data that's accompanying those reports. So the property condition assessment, the appraisal, the zoning, all of that stuff, making sure the salient data is matching across those deliverables so that our clients don't have to wonder which one's correct. And it sounds like a basic thing, but it actually requires quite a bit of discussion to understand whose information takes precedent, whether it's the appraisal or the property condition. So that's just one example of how we use the time to our advantage and make sure we're poised for growth as we move forward.
That's great. Yeah, great advice. I appreciate that. AEI Consultants has been a longtime member of the California MBA and a very consistent sponsor for the Western States CREF Conference, for which I'm always grateful. Thank you very much for that. Can you share with our listeners why the company chooses to support the California MBA?
Sure. We really enjoy connecting with everyone in the California MBA because this is our community. We're part of this larger commercial real estate finance community, and we need to be with our clients to understand the challenges they're facing. And Susan, the work that you do is so important to represent the important work of the commercial real estate finance community at the state level. I think it's understandable, as I was saying before I got into this business, I really didn't understand the ins and outs of commercial real estate. So I understand why there are some efforts at times legislatively where people have, they mean well, but it's really important that we have a voice in Sacramento and that, we help to educate the legislators as well as the people in our communities about how important commercial real estate is. Both the developers, the lenders, everyone that influences what happens in the buildings that we live, work, and play in. It's just so important, and I really appreciate all your hard work on behalf of our industry.
Well, thank you so much, Holly. I appreciate that, and thanks to AEI for being such a great member for all these years. And lovely to have you on the Connect podcast. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thanks so much.
And thanks to all of you for joining us on today's Connect. To access any of our past episodes, you can follow us on our YouTube channel. We're also available on SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. That's it for this week, and I'll see you next time on Connect.
Here we go.